Sometimes I'll hear on the news or just with people I'm talking to, they'll talk about fundamentalists or extremists, talking about, those crazy Christians, and they'll say something to describe them. They'll say like, oh, those are the people that take the Bible literally, and I've even heard this term, this idea of you taking the Bible literally. I've even heard this from Christians. Christians will say, oh, the Bible is the literal word of God, but Christians will say like, hey, we gotta stand strong for the literal interpretation of the Bible because we don't want to give up ideas of inerrancy or this idea of the Bible being authoritative. We've got to take the Bible literally. That's how you'll know that you are really pursuing God the right way. And I've even had people ask me, are you one of those Christians that takes the Bible literally? But this has always been a hard question for me to answer. I feel like if I say yes to this question, it'll suggest some things that maybe I don't really mean, and if I say no, it's kind of the same thing. I really struggle with this question, man. I think ultimately the reason I struggle to answer this question is not that it's not so much with the way that I answer the question, but the question being asked itself. I think the question is just simply the wrong question. Let me give you an example. It'll be common for my wife to come home from work and she'll say something like, hey, what did you do today? And I'll try to give her a summary of my day. I'll say something like, oh, well, I did some schoolwork. I worked on, right now I'm painting our kitchen cabinets. So I worked on the cabinets and I went for a run. And man, the heat, it was so hot today. The heat killed me on my run. And that's what I did today. This is the answer to her question. And I think we could ask the same question about the Bible. Is the Bible literal, or should we read the Bible literally? I think we could ask the same question about my statement about my day. Was I giving her a literal statement? Should she literally interpret, or should she interpret my statement about what I did that day literally? And I think there's actually an argument to be made that she should and she should not. The problem is that I didn't quite give her a minute-by-minute breakdown. In fact, I didn't really even give her a chronological telling of my story. A lot of times I might exercise in the beginning of the day, even though exercise came at the end. And I know, like for today, I had a lot of time I had the day off, so I had a lot of time to work on things. I did a little bit of schoolwork, then I went and I painted part of our cabinets, and as that's drying, I went back and did a little bit of schoolwork, and then I painted a little more, then I went on a run, then I came back. My statement to her about what I did during the day is true. It's true that I painted some of the cabinets, I went and exercised, but it's not a literal in terms of a minute-by-minute chronological retelling of my day. Even though I told her the truth, I didn't lie, it's not a literal retelling. And in fact, in my statement, there was actually this statement that there's this part that I said, hey, the heat killed me, it was so hot. Well, clearly this is not meant to be taken literally, and she wouldn't take it to be that I died, that I'm dead. But it is true that it was extremely hot. So I'm asking her to believe what I'm saying, that my statement about the day is true, but is it literal? I think there's an argument to be made to say that it was not a literal retelling, and she should not take it literally. But in saying that she should not take my statement literally, I'm not saying that she should not believe it. It is a true statement, even if it is not literal. This is the problem with this question of literal or not. I think it speaks actually more to the way that we as humans communicate. We might communicate something which is true, but is not literal in the sense that, my story was not a minute-by-minute chronological breakdown, even though it is actually true. And we speak in often figurative language, like saying the heat today killed me, even though I don't really mean I died. I just mean it was extremely, extremely hot. Well, this is the way that the Bible communicates. The Bible communicates just like in my one statement, in my one answer to my wife. I might include things which are true and more descriptive in terms of I said I painted the cabinets. That is a very descriptive part of my statement. Now later I said that heat killed me. This is more figurative, but it's still a true statement, and it actually does describe the truth of my scenario. This this figurative and non-figurative language in the same statement is going to be, I mean, we can easily see how this could be included in the same book of the Bible. The Bible is 66 texts, right? Written by multiple authors. Each might include moments which are meant to be more figurative, more poetic, more other portions that are meant to be more narrative, or I think those are the parts when Christians say, oh, you take the Bible literally. I think that's sort of what they're meaning. It's more that they tell a story which is true. The Bible is not meant to be taken literally or not literally. In fact, there's parts of the Bible which would kind of walk the line between the two. We see parts of the Bible that we are clearly figurative. You know, the Bible over and over talks about about God being spirit, about being non-physical. But then it will describe God as, like in the Psalms, God is described as having wings. Or it'll say that somebody saw God face to face. These are not meant to be literal descriptions of God, but figurative language to describe something that's happening. But we might even just say that in our own life. I might say that I took someone under my wing, meaning I mentored them. I'm not really trying to say that I have a wing, just as the psalmist is not trying to say that God has a wing, but it's descriptive language to describe something true. Just because something is not literal does not necessarily mean that it is not true. In fact, much of language and much of the way that we communicate is going to be not literal, or it might be figurative language, or we might describe it in some other way, but is nonetheless true. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is not true just to say that I don't take something literally. Now, sometimes I'll try to explain this to someone. I'll try to explain, hey, a portion of the Bible may not be meant to be taken literally. Some portion of the Bible is figurative. Inevitably, somebody will say something to me like, oh, you're just picking and choosing what parts of the Bible to believe. How should I know then what I'm supposed to believe is true and what is supposed to be metaphorical? And in this way, it's almost as though they're saying that they can throw out the entire Bible because I took one portion of it and said, well, this portion is metaphor. This portion is figurative. Well, that's not the case. It's not the case that the hearer should be able to choose. I'm not arguing that me as the reader of the Bible, I should get to pick and choose what parts of the Bible are figurative or metaphor or some other type of poetic language. I'm saying that the Bible determines what portions are supposed to be more poetic. Just like when I'm speaking to my wife, when I tell her my story of the day, hey, I painted the cabinets, I went on a run, the heat killed me. She is not the one who chooses what portions of my language are figurative, which portions are more narrative. I chose that. She, in interpreting my statement, is not going to, because she's going to say, oh, hey, he said that he killed him, but he's alive, so therefore that part of the story is not true, so therefore I can throw out all of it. No. She knows, this is a common thing for us to say. She knows that, oh, it's true that I painted the cabinets, I did some schoolwork, I went on a run, and it was very hot. That is the clear reading or interpretation of my statement. When she hears me say that, she knows that that's what I'm trying to communicate. In the same way, we can look at the Bible and fairly assess what it is trying to tell us. Portions of the Bible are clearly figurative or poetic. You see portions of the Bible which are in verse. Even portions of one book might be in verse. Like you might see a letter from Paul, which is a letter directly to the people he's writing to, but then he might include a portion that is in verse, which would be him quoting a psalm or some type of saying that is known to the community. You'll see that in some prophetic books like Revelation or Daniel, where some portions seem to be more narrative, something that really happened to the people, and more metaphorical. It's a vision or a dream that somebody is having, and these are supposed to be interpretive. But it's up to the Bible to tell us that. So when we ask the question, should we take the Bible literally or not? I think we're asking the wrong question. I think the question is the Bible telling us something that is true or not? Is the message of the Bible true? Now, absolutely. If you're going to ask me, am I one of those Christians that believes that the Bible is telling a true message? Well, yeah. It would be hard to say you're a Christian and not accept that the Bible is telling a true message about God. But the question of literal or not sort of misses the point of language, of communication itself. What we want to ask is the Bible telling us a true message? And we want to be open to the idea that the Bible itself may be choosing at times to tell us something in a more metaphorical way, more figurative way, or a more narrative way. Some portions of the Bible are presented as true history, and we should evaluate them as true history. Other portions may be more theological ideas that the Bible is trying to communicate some type of concept of God to us or about life to us. And in those ways, we want to take the message of the Bible, even if it's not a literal God has wings. There's going to be portions of the Bible which are more figurative, less figurative, but ultimately the message, what is being communicated, must be true. That's what we're talking about when we talk about inerrancy or about the authority of Scripture. If the Bible has authority, then what it's communicating is true, even if not every portion of it is literal.